Welcome to episode 327 of the Lone Hockey Podcast. We're back in early September. The NHL season's right around the corner. And what I wanted to talk about today is, and I mentioned it in my article, was the forthcoming of the Ivan Demidov Lane Hutson duo and how this could become something very special in Montreal. Obviously, there's a young core there that's looking to really emerge this season and they have the young crop of talent to do that. And I think you're going to be largely relying upon both Hutson and Demidov and Caulfield and Suzuki and all those guys. Noah Dobson's in that mix now. You're relying on all these guys to make a sustained impact and have that offensive acumen right out of the gate. Yuri Slafkovsky, like there's so many other guys, so many other names as well. You add Zach Bolduc as a top nine guy. There's a good mix of young talent intertwined with the veterans, and I think that's going to allow Montreal to blossom. Obviously, they're looking to move Carey Price now, trying to get that salary off the books, and and looking more and more likely it's going to happen within the next week and a half, somewhere around there. I don't know when exactly, but the thing is with Hutson and Demidov, you're obviously getting two very creative, very cerebral offensive talents. Hudson, obviously, more of a defensive guy, but at the same time plays a very offensive game. And when you look at Demidov, he plays flashy, he plays on the perimeter really well, but also on the inside and in the interior of the ice really well. So he can do both. And I think this is a duo that you're going to be looking at for a long, long time as a pair that can really make an impact with one another, work really well off one another on the power play at 5-on-5. So many different situations where they can use their playmaking and also their goal scoring off one another. And I think this is a duo that's going to be one of the better duos within Montreal. And it's it's so unique too because this is a defenseman and a forward we're talking about. A guy Demidov's more of a winger, more of a flashy, creative playmaking style winger who can do anything and he's willing to go through you, he can go around you, he can manipulate your triangle, he can manipulate your stick, he can take advantage of your footwork. Like he can do so many different things that are creative and so relied upon offensively nowadays and so important to be able to have that sustained impact in the NHL for a long time. And I think with Demidov, he's going to be that guy where long term he could be an 100 per point player perhaps. I don't know when he's going to peak, but there's certainly that upside where he can hit at least 100 points per season. And I think same thing with Hudson. And Hudson, it might take a little bit longer for him to get there. I don't think it's out of the question though that Hudson can get at least 80 or 90 points, maybe even 100 at some point. I think with the way the game is trending, the way the league is trending, there's more and more players who are getting 90 plus points in the modern era and producing not just assists but also goals. These are guys they're multifaceted defensemen. They can play an offensive role but also score. They have elite shots. They have really high quality skating. They have attributes that are translatable and can make an impact as goal scorers. We see it with Cale Makar. We've seen it before with Adam Fox. We didn't see it last year, but we've seen it before with him. We've seen it with Eric Carlson. We've seen it almost with Victor Hedman. We've seen it with so many other guys too. And I mean, even some older players like Duncan Keith or Drew Doughty or someone like those guys. Guys who can play an offensive role and play creatively is something that you have to be nowadays as a defenseman. And Lane Hutson has all the qualities that you'd want. And just referencing back to the duo that I'm talking about, I think when you're getting a tandem like this of Demidov and Hudson, these are guys who can be played almost anywhere. You can play them anywhere on the power play, and I would imagine they'd be fine. You can even play them at the net front, and I'd imagine they'd be fine. Like I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Hudson's a guy. I think one of the most interesting things on the power play for a defenseman is to try and play the bumper role. You don't see it with many teams. No, not many teams are willing to do that because usually the defenseman is the one manning the point. But the thing with the bumper position is usually the defenseman has to be the guy who's moving pucks quickly, has to make those one-touch plays and has to be a quality skater. And I think that's the underrated part to where Hutson could be a bumper, he could be a flank guy, he can be a point man. And we saw last year where Mike Matheson started the season for Montreal as the first unit quarterback for the power play. And then eventually evolved into Hutson because Hutson was Hutson and Hutson was just doing Hutson things. And he turned over and ended up being in that role for the rest of the season pretty much. But I think with this year, it's gonna be interesting if I wouldn't honestly be surprised if Hutson starts as more of a flank guy because now you have Noah Dobson in the mix. We've seen Marty St. Louis opt towards the five-man forward power play before. I think when you have Dobson and Hutson, it almost kind of forces you to use both of them on the power play. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go 2D and three forwards like normal. But I think it's really something that's underestimated is how special we could see this Ivan Demidov and Lane Hutson duo become because they're very similar players stylistically in height relatively, I would say, and they both have the ability to make such an elite offensive impact. And they're both very creative and it's a duo that's has so much potential, especially given their age the way Hutson played last year, how good he was, how talented he was offensively. I think there's so much more room for him to continue to grow and just continue to get better over the course of time, not only throughout this season but beyond. Same for Demidov as well.